In the glittering heart of ancient Rome, where marble palaces shimmered under the sun and secrets whispered through candlelit halls, one name carried both fascination and fear: Valeria Messalina. To the people, she was the empress of desire and danger, a woman whose very presence could charm or destroy. To her enemies, she was something far worse, the embodiment of corruption and ambition. But behind the myths, behind the legends carved by her enemies, there was a young woman, intelligent, ambitious, and trapped in a world ruled by men in power. When Emperor Claudius rose to the throne in 41 AD, the empire was trembling. Rome had seen assassination, betrayals, and madness under Caligula. Claudius himself was mocked by his own family, seen as weak, stammering, and unfit to rule. Yet destiny placed a crown on his head. Beside him stood a woman only in her 20s, Valeria Messalina, his wife, niece of Emperor Tiberius, and cousin of Caligula. She was born into privilege, but also into danger. In the empire's golden cage, beauty was a weapon and intelligence a curse. Messalina quickly learned that in Rome, survival meant mastering the game of influence. She watched, listened, and acted. She understood that real power didn't come from armies or laws. It came from whispers. Through her charm and cunning, she gained control over access to Claudius. Every favor, every decision, every appointment passed through her subtle approval. Senators bowed to her, generals flattered her, and those who opposed her soon found themselves exiled or executed. Ancient historians claim she was driven by greed and lust, but the truth may be far more political. She was protecting herself and her allies in a court that devoured the weak. Tacitus, Suetonius, and Juvenal, the great Roman chroniclers, wrote about Messalina as if she were a monster in human form. They described banquets of pleasure, secret gatherings, and unspeakable acts. But these men lived in an age where powerful women were feared. To them, a woman who influenced an emperor was unnatural. Their words, passed down through centuries, turned Messalina into a symbol of Rome's moral decay. Yet if we strip away their bias, what remains is a portrait of a woman navigating a brutal world where love, loyalty, and death were all tools of politics. Rome itself was a paradox. It celebrated discipline, but worshipped indulgence. It built temples to virtue, yet thrived on scandal. The same senators who condemned Messalina for immorality held their own feasts of excess. The same writers who judged her so harshly would not dare criticize men who committed worse crimes. In this city of contradictions, Messalina's story was inevitable. She lived too freely, rose too high, and made too many enemies. Her influence became so great that even the emperor's advisors, Narcissus, Pallas, and Callistus, began to fear her. They were freedmen who controlled the machinery of the court, and Messalina's power threatened theirs. Behind closed doors, they whispered of her downfall, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that moment came with her alleged marriage to Gaius Silius. The story, as ancient Rome tells it, sounds like madness. While Claudius was away from the city, Messalina supposedly married Silius, a nobleman known for his beauty and ambition, in a public ceremony. To the chroniclers, this was proof of her depravity. But perhaps it was something else, a desperate attempt to secure her future, or even a plot against Claudius that went terribly wrong. Some scholars believe Silius was part of a political movement hoping to replace the emperor, with Messalina's support as a key to legitimacy. Whatever the truth, when news reached Claudius, the empire trembled once more. The emperor was stunned, confused, and humiliated. His trusted secretary, Narcissus, seized control. He convinced Claudius that Messalina's act was treason, that she was preparing to overthrow him. Soldiers were dispatched. The gardens of Lucullus, once filled with laughter and music, became the setting of her doom. Messalina hid there, terrified, pleading for a chance to explain. But no messenger of mercy came. Claudius, overwhelmed by fear and manipulation, signed the order. The empress who once ruled Rome through charm and cunning was executed in silence. Her name was erased from inscriptions, her statue smashed, her memory cursed. Yet death could not destroy her legend. The men who wrote Rome's history ensured her name would live on. As the Empress of Sin, the woman who corrupted the empire. Over time, her story grew darker, more sensational. Poets and painters turned her into the face of forbidden pleasure. In the Renaissance, She was painted reclining among silks and jewels, surrounded by symbols of temptation. In Victorian times, her name became a warning to women, a lesson in morality shaped by the fears of men. But history is rarely pure. The more we study the ancient sources, the clearer it becomes that Messalina's image was carefully constructed. She died not because of her vices, but because of her power. In a world that denied women authority, her intelligence and influence were her greatest crimes. Her terrifying intimate practices, as the Romans called them, may not have been acts of passion at all, but acts of political survival. In the empire's ruthless hierarchy, intimacy was a language of control. To hold favor, to gain loyalty, to secure protection, everything was transactional. Messalina played that game better than most, until the game turned against her. Imagine her final moments, a young woman, betrayed by those she trusted, condemned by the man she loved, knowing that her enemies would twist her story forever. There, in the quiet of the garden, the Empress met her end not as a villain, but as a victim of Rome's cruelty. The empire that glorified conquest could not tolerate a woman who conquered through charm and will. Centuries have passed, but the shadow of Messalina still lingers. Her name appears in literature, opera, and film, always as a seductress, the manipulator, the symbol of fallen virtue. Yet behind every version of her legend lies the same truth. She was too powerful for her time. Her story reminds us how history punishes women who defy expectations, how power and sexuality are used to define and destroy them. Was Valeria Messalina truly Rome's most perverted empress? Or was she the most maligned? A woman whose enemies wrote her story to justify their own ambitions? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. What we know for certain is that she was brilliant, influential, and dangerous to the fragile egos of the men who ruled Rome. And in their fear, they turned her into a monster so that they could feel safe again. Today, when we walk among the ruins of Rome, the crumbling arches, the silent forums, the empty marble halls, her spirit seems to whisper through the stones. She reminds us that the empire's glory was built not just by men in armor, but by women in shadow. Her legend is both a warning and a revelation. That power, once taken by a woman, has always terrified the world. So the next time someone speaks of Messalina with disgust or fascination, remember this. History is not truth, it is storytelling. And the most dangerous stories are the ones told to hide our fears. Valeria Messalina was not merely a scandal. She was a mirror reflecting Rome's own corruption. In destroying her, the empire confessed its own sins. And thus, the tale of Valeria Messalina endures, the empress they tried to erase, but could never silence.